Thanks so much for coming to our live Wanderful event. We're so excited to have all of you. I'm going to give people a minute to come on into the conversation, into the room. I know we are live streaming in a few different places. We're on YouTube, which most of you who RSVP'd in advance got that link to YouTube. We're also on LinkedIn and on Facebook. So really cool opportunity to connect with all sorts of people across the web. And what I want to do as you all start to get settled in is go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat too. So this is for sure interactive. I know there's going to be a lot of looking and listening, but also I want you to feel part of this, whether that's asking questions, whether that's sharing comments, whatever helps you to get the information that you need. This session is for you. So go ahead and kick us off. Put in the comments who you are, where you're tuning in from around the world. If you want to add bonus points and tell me what the weather looks like, I love just getting a sense of what the world is like, outside your window. So go ahead and post yourself in the comments and we'll give you a shout out and say hi. And as we roll on in, let me introduce a little bit about what we're talking about today and also who we are. I know a lot of people who come to our public facing events are new to the Wanderful community. So let's take a minute to introduce Wanderful. If you haven't heard of us before, Wanderful is an international community of thousands of travel lovers, travel content creators, even small business owners. And our whole goal is to help make travel better for women worldwide. And that means a few things. Some of that means advocacy and standing up for just a better travel equation for women. But also some of that just means being present in our own connections with each other. We have chapters all around the world. We have over 50 local chapters now. We have an online network where women can connect with each other, whether they're going someplace and looking for a local contact, or whether they're just looking for advice on an upcoming trip. We're all there to support each other. And then recently, we've actually started doing a lot more trips. We have been organizing some small group activities, and also my favorite thing, which is called a global meetup, where we basically pick a destination and have just a whole bunch of women show up there. I just got back from our second global meetup in Edinburgh, and it was awesome. So I would love for you to continue to learn more about Wanderful. I see some wonderful members in here already. Hi, Shanice. I saw Kelly in here as well. I saw Patricia here. So thank you all for being here and for giving us a little bite of what your weather looks like. That's always fun. And then in addition to our ongoing everyday activities at Wanderful, we also do some really neat stuff throughout the year. We run the WITS Travel Creator Summit, which is a summit that we've been running for 500 travel content creators every year since 2014, which has been really a fantastic way for us to explore a new area, but then also build professional connections. And we'll have a lot of travel brands that will come. We'll do a lot of marketing and content creation workshops and really help people build their voices in the travel space. And then we also have the Bessie Awards, which I'll talk about a little bit more because that is for sure the highlight of this event today. But before I do, I just want to give you a quick shout out. So if Wanderful is new to you, I highly encourage you to check out our community. You can go to sheswanderful.com/join. You all are going to get a follow-up email with all of the details here, including some of the resources that our special guest is going to be talking about today. So everything will come into your email inbox if you RSVP'd. If not, then send us a message. You can just email us. It's just, I'm actually just going to put it in the chat right here. It's just team@sheswanderful.com. You can always shoot us an email and we'll send you those resources as well. But come and check out our member community. We're a really great group of women. And let's talk about one of the last things, which is these public facing events. So we do 2 virtual events for our whole wider network every month. One is always focused on content creation and the business of travel, like our event today. And then others are just about travel and travel tips and how to become a better traveler. So next Friday, October 27th, we're doing a really great solo travel workshop. It's called Solo Travel Isn't Spooky, Top Tips for Traveling Solo in 2024. Oh, hi, Damaris. Alexa West, who just published, actually have the book right here. She just published this book called The One-Way Ticket Plan. It just came out. It's a solo travel guide, and she's going to be joining us to do that workshop next week, which will be really fun. We have a really awesome session in November called How to Turn Any Trip into a Wellness Journey. That's all about how wellness doesn't have to be something that you just subscribe to and say, like, I'm going to go on a wellness trip. Wellness can be incorporated into any kind of trip. And so we'll talk about how you can take the elements of wellness and bring them into your travels. And then my personal favorite, the next day, we're actually doing a creator professional session on how to land a book deal. And I'm going to be hosting that one because I have a book coming out, and I'm actually bringing in the whole team of people that have been working on it. So our literary agent, our publisher, and we're going to have a panel and talk about how do you get to that space of taking your words, pitching to a publisher, getting a deal, and publishing a book. So it's going to be a really cool event, and I hope you check it out. And all of those, again, will be in that follow-up email. Okay, I know that was a lot. So let's dive into what we're talking about today. If you haven't heard of the Bessie Awards, that is one of those other annual activities that we do in the Wanderful community. And it's one of my favorites because it's all about honoring women of impact who are not only doing great things for themselves, but in our opinion, are really pushing the travel industry forward, making it a more inclusive place, making it a better place across the board for many more people. And so the Bessie Awards happen at our WITS Travel Creator Summit every year. And it's a really nice glammed up award show. We present awards in 9 different categories. Some of them go to content creators, journalists, and writers. Others go to travel brands, companies that have done really great campaigns or really great initiatives to support women in travel. And the really neat thing about all of this is that it's completely open nominations. So my last announcement to share with you is that if you have seen something in your universe that has really inspired you, we're taking nominations for next year's Bessie Awards for the next 2 weeks. November 1st is the deadline. So use this as your opportunity to get inspired, think about what you've seen out there, and really recognize somebody for the work they've done. And you can just go to bessieawards.org. Again, anybody can nominate in any of the categories. And then the voting is done by WITS attendees, past WITS attendees, and our Bessie Society, which is anyone who's ever won a Bessie Award. They get to actually vote on who wins the next year, which is really neat. So that's really special. And we'll talk a little bit more about the nuances of the Bessies and specifically our Creator of the Year category, because that's what we're leading into today. And with all that, I want to welcome to the virtual stage this year's winner of the Creator of the Year award for the Bessies, Olivia Christine. Olivia, I'm going to brag about you a little bit before I bring you on, and then so that you don't have to publicly be embarrassed by everyone. But let me tell you about how amazing Olivia is. She is a travel expert and acclaimed content creator at Christine, which is empowering women and BIPOC communities to travel more and get outdoors for their wellness. Olivia has worked with leading travel and lifestyle brands and mentors rising creators in running their blogs as a business. She's an alumna of the Disney Creators Lab and Remarkable Voices. She received accolades from the Webby-nominated Airbnb Black Travel List. She's a longtime lupus advocate and content marketing pro, and she's been featured on OWN, the Oprah Magazine, CNN, CNBC Make It, and more. And we are so thrilled to have her today. Welcome, Olivia.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, I have been so looking forward to this conversation. So thank you so much for being here.
I'm so excited. I feel so honored, and thank you all for waking up this morning so we can chat.
Yes, to everyone. I know it's always so funny having these live streams for our international audience, because some people are like, it's the middle of the night for me. And other people are like, it's like, I just woke up and I'm eating my breakfast. And then others are like, it's the end of the day. So it's always fun. But that's also why we love to just record them and be like, just watch it whenever you can. Just come in and watch it when you can. So for everyone who's made it in live, thanks for being here. And for everyone who's watching the recording, thanks for prioritizing this and putting this into your schedule. And Olivia, before we hear from you, I want to kind of bring everybody up to speed about the Creator of the Year award. So I have this awesome, and if it were me, I'd be totally embarrassed, but you don't get embarrassed because you're perfect. So This is a picture of Olivia winning the Creator of the Year award at WITS 2023 in Puerto Rico. And to give a little background on what this award is, it honors a creator who has gone above and beyond in the past year to challenge the status quo as a thought leader in the industry. So we really look at this on this very holistic level, which is not just, somebody who has the most followers or who's had the most interesting partnerships. We really look at who is saying something that we as a community think is really important, and is not only saying those things, but has really effectively built a business or built a following of people who are listening to that thing. And I think that's kind of where the Creator of the Year is really special, because it's let's talk about how important this work is as creators, and sharing perspectives and sharing where we think this industry should go. And then let's really honor the people who are doing that. So congratulations to you for winning back in May. That must have felt so exciting.
It really did. I was so shocked, and yes, embarrassing moments. I think no matter where you are, I think no matter where you are in your journey, there's always still the embarrassing moments or the second guessing. And I think it's really important to also share that part of it too, because, it doesn't always get easier in every aspect. But, we just keep going and we keep going forward.
Yeah, totally. No, and I think, it's so important to give yourself that moment to recognize that too. I think that's one thing that I really love about this award show is that, and we launched it, right? We've been running WIT since 2014. We launched the award show in 2019. I mean, it took us 5 years ourselves to even kind of be we really need to take a step back and recognize all of the progress that we've made, because it's a lot. This stuff changes so fast, especially the creator industry, media on a whole. I mean, giving us that moment. And I really do feel when you're there at the Bessies, whether or not you win, whether or not you're even nominated, it's this moment where we can all kind of be let's just celebrate the fact that we're doing the thing,
Absolutely. I was speaking to someone about it right after I won the award, and she said, and she was a previous award winner, and she said, well, how do you feel? And the first thought that came to mind was there was a little bit of a moment where I was allowing myself to actually soak it up and to recognize all the work that I've put in. And sometimes you get a little distracted because you're just going. And it forced me to just have a moment and give myself praise and just be kind to myself. So that was really nice.
Oh, I love that. Well, let's hear from you a little bit more. I want to know, because I was talking to a couple of our team members about this, and we were reflecting on your own journey, not just as yourself, but also as part of the Wanderful community. We were oh my gosh, Olivia had started, I think there were a couple of years ago that you were just starting out coming to WITS, and then you're the Creator of the Year. I would love to hear more about your journey as a creator. How did it start? Where did it all come from? Give us kind of that origin story.
Yeah. Well, first, it's the best story when it comes to Wanderful, because I was a volunteer the first time.
You made a volunteer. Yeah.
So I was a volunteer at the Wanderful conference in Milwaukee. And it was my first conference that I'd ever been to. But before that, I'd spent 5 years after college, 5-6 years after college, just working the corporate world. I worked in events, I worked in conferences myself, I worked in marketing, and I have an autoimmune disease. So having lupus, it's really difficult for a lot of autoimmune folks, especially in the invisible disease world, where, just because you look healthy doesn't necessarily mean that things are all perfect. So that working world, or rather the intensity of that world that I was in just wasn't great for my health or for my stress levels. And it just wasn't the path that I wanted to set on. So I quit my job in 2014 and I started to travel. And the one thing that was really impactful for me was I realized that as someone who was born and raised in city environments, I'm from the Bronx, New York. And so someone who was raised in city environments, my access to nature and exploration wasn't exactly something that came as a privilege for me. So after leaving that working world, pursuing travel and really just trying to figure out, what was the path for me, I noticed that my health started to improve as well. And
Mm.
we sort of forget, like, there's something absolutely fantastical about travel and the wanderlust and all of that, but there are actually really deeper levels of wellness, whether it's mentally, physically, that really come from travel. And that was something that not only was I finding out more about who I was, more about
Mhm.
how I connect with the world and how much around the world we all have things in common. But I was also finding a new path that I wanted to set on. So I thought, I want to make travel happen, but I don't know how to make travel happen for the long run. So I was doing everything. I thought I could be maybe a marketing consultant, maybe I'll be a graphic designer, but just and meeting people along the way, like what is it that you do? you
Yeah.
know, how do you make money? How do you make this lifestyle really a full-time thing for you?
Mm.
And one of the things I learned was about blogging. I had already, the blogging world was just starting to be popular. And I met a couple of bloggers along my backpacking journey. And that really taught me, wow, there are people who are sharing their stories, but there are also people who their voices are important to helping others, uplifting others. And I thought, I'm a good writer. I love photography. I'm doing this travel thing already. So why not just share how I'm doing this? So that sort of opened the door. But what really solidified it for me as a creator was deciding to join a conference. I knew coming from the conference world that this could be so impactful to one's career, no matter what industry they're in. So I don't even remember how I stumbled upon Wanderful, but I did. And I realized that because I quit my job, I didn't really know to invest in myself yet. And I didn't have the resources necessarily to invest in myself because my little piggy bank was for my travels. and I saw that there were the volunteer programs, and I thought, I have the experience. I can be a volunteer. I can just dive in here and learn more about what it is to be with other people who are like-minded, who are also traveling, because again, home life did not agree with my traveling lifestyle or
Yeah.
understand it. So being a volunteer really helped me. And I was actually a volunteer thereafter as well. And it quickly became one of my favorite conferences, one of my favorite communities. And it was almost validating to be there because that was when I started meeting creators who were quote unquote bigger or more established, more experienced, and they knew my name and they recognized my face. And I thought, and so you realize there's community here that I didn't know existed, and this is the place where I should get started, and these are the people that I should connect with. So I think that was the most pivotal point for me.
And you had your blog at that point, right? You were
Yes.
already publishing. Yeah. That's neat. And I think especially in this world of content creation, because you are so online all the time, it's like it's hard to find that community and to have those face-to-face moments. And so I do think that's like one really big value of coming to any event. I mean, WITS, but like, any kind of in-person event where you can really just share some of those stories, because it does feel very isolating sometimes. Even if you have a whole audience and, a whole community of your own, it's still like you're
Yeah.
not seeing people and talking and like hearing those real stories and having those deep conversations. And so that's so exciting. And I love that. And I want to know more about, what was that turning point for you in, was your blog always focused on the same content? Did it ever evolve? Like, at what point did you start seeing yourself as not just a, kid with a blog, which is kind of how I saw myself when I first started, into like, no, I'm actually a professional content creator. I'm doing this. This is a business.
Yeah, good question. It was years, years. I had a lifestyle blog. I remember I was really into fashion at one point. Then I was into interior design and scrapbooking. I was just always doing
Everything.
things, all
Yeah.
the things. But again, back then it was a hobby. And when I started to write about travel itself, it was very, and as I'm sure you can recall, very journal and diary based. This is
Yeah.
what I did today. Missed the bus.
Yeah.
Gonna head out tomorrow. I met someone at the hostel. She was nice. Like, that's really what it was. I would say, again, fast forwarding at another wonderful conference. This one was in Quebec. I met someone there that was just like the DMO for like a destination. So just one of the marketing people, and she was an attendee, and we got to chatting, and she said, I love, because at that point Instagram started to really pick up. And she said, I love the messaging that you always have in your content. I love the authenticity and the way you weave in outdoors. And she ended up being Grand Rapids, Michigan. And that was my first paid destination partnership. And it was so impactful having that conversation, seeing that there were people watching. I had partnerships before then, but they were always like smaller products. Like my first partnership was a journal for $25, and I just, showed how I was keeping this journal. So there was a really, really a leap. I think I would say it wasn't until about 2017 so that's 3 years after I started like travel blogging, 3 years into it, more travel oriented partnerships would arise, and Grand Rapids was one of them from a destination standpoint. And when I took it very seriously, and I did the absolute best I could, and I realized this is what I want to do. This is the moment that like everything was clear. And from then on, everything I posted was with deep intention, not just to get partnerships, but so that anyone who was watching, because I realized then I don't know who's watching, anyone could be watching, and the work that I do is important.
That's so illuminating. And I think you're right. That first opportunity when somebody sees you and kind of wants to really work with you, and you're kind of like, okay, I can do this. Like I can actually make something of this. But I also feel like there's so much pressure too in that moment of like, okay, now, I remember being on my very first press trip that I did in 2014, and I actually brought a couple of friends along with me and like pitched this group thing. But then the whole time in the car, I remember saying to them, like, don't tell the people that you guys are just my friends and that I'm doing this part-time. Like, just make it sound like, we're real, like I remember having this conversation of like, just don't let them know that we all work together at a day job. And because I felt so like not real,
imposter syndrome.
And they did total imposter syndrome. And like they, looking back, like they wouldn't have cared, now I would just march in and be like, hey, here's me and a couple of friends. And like, what they're looking at is what is the content that you're going to create, and what is the investment that they put in, and what are they getting out of it. But back then I was like so worried that they would find out that I wasn't doing this full time, and I didn't have like an office, and it felt so like it had to be a certain way. So, and I think a lot of people still have that pressure of like legitimizing themselves and sort of understanding, when do you say, oh, I'm just kind of starting out and trying this thing, and when do you actually say like, no, I am, this is the value I'm providing, and here's the thing that, you're going to get out of it, and here's what I'm asking for. And I honestly think that conversation is hard, because I think sometimes you are just starting out and you can't really ask for everything, and you shouldn't expect partnerships, and that's okay, because you'll progress to a certain point where you can, and then where the value you're offering really is worth it to a brand partner.
Absolutely. I definitely did before that paid partnership. I definitely had a number of more exchange and bartering partnerships. So meet yourself where you are. And while it's easy to kind of compare yourself to others and what they're doing, what kind of partnerships they're having, I knew that at that time, I needed to build my portfolio. I knew that I didn't know how to adequately execute a partnership, and therefore, a lot of the work that I was doing needed to, where I was and the level of partnerships I was getting at that time needed to reflect that level of experience. And I think there's a special partnership for everyone and a special agreement, and you can evaluate those opportunities and how it can be mutually beneficial, and walk away knowing that you're actually benefiting from said partnership. And I think that's the way to always feel good about what you're doing.
Yeah. I want to take a pause and let everyone who's watching know too that I will open up questions and comments from all of you watching. So feel free to drop them in anytime. And then Rebecca, who's working the back end, is going to help me too. Just filter through them and make sure that we're presenting them to Olivia. So don't feel like you have to wait until the end. Go ahead and put them in now. In maybe 10 minutes or so, we'll probably switch over to questions. But Olivia, I'd love for you to walk us through a little bit of, a day in your life now. Like, what are the offerings that you're doing now? How often are you traveling? How much are you writing? What types of products and services are you creating for your audience? What does your business look like today?
So today, I would say, every year for a content creator, it's different. So today I have started to settle a little bit more. I actually have an apartment, and that's even a big change because I was very nomadic.
Yeah.
But I would say, in general, where I'm today, I am focusing again on my blog, with the ever changing nature of social media, like, it's so important to still have your own, whether it's your own newsletter, your own website. So that's something that I've been focusing a lot on. I also have focused on expanding my offerings. So it's really important as a creator to diversify, and diversifying meaning diversifying your income, whether that is from ad income on your blog, partnership income through social media, but also through products. So I have been building out an ebook series on wellness getaways, just to kind of help people create that a little bit more. I also have a Get Outdoors course that I launched last summer. I had a number of social media content about the outdoors go viral. And what I noticed was that a lot of people who are like me, maybe from cities, maybe don't necessarily have a lot of experience with the outdoors, they want to do this, but they don't know that the outdoors is for them, or they don't see people who look like them outdoors. And so it was really important for me to create my first course where I just said, forget about imposter syndrome, forget about perfection. This is what people are actually asking for. This is what people need and want. So those were two things that I created that. So everyday life as a creator is balancing maintaining your blog, updating old information, creating new information, as well as creating other avenues for revenue so that you're continuing to be helpful and empowering to your community.
And we have some of those resources that we just popped up on the screen there too. So you can all see the Wellness Getaway Guide and the Get Outdoors 101 course that Olivia has. And again, we'll follow up in an email too, so you can see that, but just for the sake of getting it on the screen there as well. But to your point, I think, this question, it comes up, I think, every year at WITS, and just in general, of kind of like, well, how do you do it? How do you make money? Like, and not even what are the steps, but like, what are the business, what is the business that you have? And I think when you are a creator, it has to be so entrepreneurial that really you're looking at, here's my voice, here's the thing that I care about, here's the thing that's important. Now let's find really unique and, as you said, diversified ways to monetize it. So maybe that's, advertising with your content, but then maybe it's also creating your own products like you did, your own course, your own ebook. And I think really utilizing your audience to transition into being customers. And I think like sometimes it can be a little scary to go from creator to entrepreneur and to kind of think that way about, okay, I'm actually building a business here, but that's what you're doing. I mean, from the beginning, that's what you're doing.
Absolutely. I think it's really important to see yourself as a business. And I would say if I were to do it all over again, I would have done that a lot earlier and forget about striving for perfection in every single thing, because I do think that perfection does interfere with productivity. And that's something that I love to just give my absolute best all the time. But when you are a business, if you don't start looking like a business, acting like a business, and operating like a business, treating yourself as a business, then it will always be a hobby. And there's nothing wrong with being a hobby. But if that's not what your end goal is, then you need to surround yourself with business practices and a business mindset as well.
What are some of the lessons that you feel like you learned along the way, whether it was missteps that you took or tidbits that you picked up from people? What are some of those things that really stuck with you as you built your business?
I think the missteps, I would say for sure, again, goes back to that perfection, being afraid to fail upward. There was just a lot of pressure that I put on myself to be successful in this because it was such an unconventional life. And it was a life that I felt that a lot of people were so inspired by that I didn't want to fail them. But the truth is that you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes in anything that you do. So I feel that that was sort of a misstep, that I would have believed in myself and my mistakes a little bit earlier. And one of the other things that really stood out to me was I spent a lot of time trying to find ways around being a creator, whether it was, oh, okay, I'll just do freelance writing only. But if freelance writing wasn't what I truly wanted to do, I was again postponing just diving in and doing the thing that I wanted to do. And I remember being in yoga class one day and just a random person in my class said, well, if you make all of this wonderful stuff for other people, why don't you do it for yourself? And it was such a light bulb moment that I realized I don't invest in myself mentally and time-wise and effort-wise as much as I do for others because I am scared. And that was a big lesson that I learned about myself and how I could move forward. And when I started to really just say, I'm going to give as much here as I do everywhere else, that was just game changing.
I love that. Well, and I think there is so much confusion, I think, when you are a creator in even just where you should create, because to your point, there's all these new platforms that come out or new tools to use, but then, and then there's the direct methods of just creating for somebody else, right? Being a freelance writer, which is great and fine and a career for people. But then I think there's also a lot of power to owning your own space and having your own space and having your own audience and being able to utilize that. And I know a lot of people talk about, how like an email list can sometimes be some of your biggest power, because then no matter what channel you're broadcasting on, no matter where you're publishing, you still have that unique audience that you can go back to. But it can be really hard, like kind of figuring out what is my place, what's my channel? Do I want to take the time to build a whole business? It's going to take longer, or do I want to just go the route of focusing on writing for somebody else and, get those paid gigs as they come? And I think figuring out what works for you and like what your why is and why you're in it is going to help shed some light on the answer.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things, Beth, that think about when you're cooking. You know, if you try a new recipe, you're going to try it exactly the way someone told you to. Then you're going to taste it and you're going to realize, you know what? This flavor is not for me. I want a little bit more spice. And the next time you do it, you're going to throw in a little spice. And maybe when you do that, it's going to be too spicy and you're choking on your food and you realize I need to go back and I need to do it again. And I think that that's the case with creating as well. There's going to be so many things that you try that aren't going to be a fit, but you will not know until you just do it.
I think that's great advice. And I love the like cooking analogy. I think that's so spot on. But you're right. It doesn't have to be right at all the first time around. You could be completely off. But that's the great thing about like data and analytics and being, you know, and like seeing how many likes you get or seeing what the reach is or whatever. I mean, all of that is just feedback, constant feedback. And if you take it more like a scientist and almost less personally, I think that kind of helps you to really to build something that's good for you, but also really, you know, valuable for your audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to hop into a couple questions here that have come in through the chat. And this one, I'm going to show it on the screen. It's a little long and it gets cut off, but Rebecca, who's amazing, has pulled the whole question for us. So this is from Shirai. She's a project coordinator in the events industry. She has an opportunity to travel in this position, but as she's on the Canadian side, it's really limited to Canada, the States, and Mexico. And she's really kind of trying to figure out how she can get into a job or a career that allows her to travel. And I want to add to the end of this, she says, you know, what's a way to incorporate travel more without going entirely broke? You know, something like starting a blog can be really hard. Many conferences don't come to Canada. You know, where do you start if you're like, I want travel to be more part of my life, but I just have no idea how to even find those opportunities or to begin? What would you say?
Right. That's a really good question. I mean, it's a complex question because, you know, it does involve possibly, she mentioned possibly doing a visa in London. But the thing is, while I can't advise on, you know, visas and working abroad, I will say that I was in a very similar situation. When I worked in conferences, our travel was only limited to the US. But, you know, I took that as an advantage. I saved up my vacation time. And the only thing I did was invest that vacation time into long weekends. I paired it with holidays. I paired it with if I had a conference that I was doing anywhere where they were paying for the flights, I added another vacation day, just hooked one onto it. And so I would have these 4-day vacation periods, and I would use that time to explore deeply wherever I was. And one of the things that I learned from that was, yes, you might not be able to go to Japan while you're traveling for this conference in Canada, the US, or Mexico, but you might be able to take more trips where you're exploring these places deeper. I mean, Mexico is huge. There's so many places that you can explore beyond the city that you're in. Think Mexico City, so many day trips you can take from there. So that's one aspect that I did for myself as a conference coordinator. But another thing that I would say is using that experience, I often would research conferences that were developmental and training oriented, and I would pitch them to my company because at that time I wasn't ready to quit. And so I remember we had a platform that I forget, I think it was like a German run. And I would say, oh, they're having this conference that teaches you how to learn the platform better. And I would write this little proposal with bullet points on how it would help if I went to this conference. And so that was my way of squeezing some extra travel out.
Oh my God, I love it. But you know, that's such a good point that you don't have to, I think like there's, again, it's like the story that we see online, like we go into Instagram and we see these incredibly successful content creators and it seems like they were just born like that, right? Like they just came out making content and they just nailed it. And the reality is that, and I think it's a perk as a creator is like you show as much as you want of that story. And you can do so much of this while also, this doesn't have to be your full-time career. This doesn't have to be the thing that you're always doing all the time. Maybe it does become later, but it doesn't have to be now. And you can have a full-time job and then take advantage of those opportunities to travel and use that as content, or, you know,
Yes.
have them all help each other. I think like sometimes we think like, oh, I have to, you know, quit my current job so that I can travel, so that I can create my content. But actually, maybe you have some resources right at your feet that you can leverage to help build your blog or your content or your social channel so that it can get to the point where you can then support yourself.
Exactly. It's really a launch pad. Whatever your experiences are right now, that's the launch pad to just fly, soar, and actually do the things you want to do. And I'm a total advocate for utilizing the resources you have right now and creating a base. Whatever it is that you want to do, create that as your foundation so that then you could use that as a portfolio. Maybe you will, going back to the guest, maybe you will find someone who has an international conference planning company, or maybe you'll work with a travel conference, you know, like WITS. There are so many different places and opportunities, but build that portfolio so that you can actually show you have experience there.
That's so great. We have another comment from LinkedIn. LinkedIn is on fire right now, and it's from Alexa. I'm sorry, Alexis, who says, "Hi, Olivia. Thank you so much for your insight so far. I'm currently a content creator looking to grow my community in Gen Z travel. Is there anything you wish you knew or wish someone told you about how to grow a community as a travel creator?"
Yes, there's so much.
You're like, so much.
Oh, if I think about it. So one of the big things, so I'm naturally introverted. It is not my nature to just be out there and collabing with people and all of that. It's not my thing. However, if someone told me that growing my community within the industry would help me grow a community beyond the industry, my mind would have been blown, because I just couldn't believe that I was capable of that. And when I look at the exponential growth that has happened for me within the last, say, 3 years, I see community. I see content creator community. I have learned to surround myself with people who uplift me and people who I mutually uplift, people who can be accountability partners, people who you can bounce ideas off of. And being part of community and networking, and not networking, I have to put in this, not networking for your own benefit. And it's very important to make that distinction, because sometimes you can tell when someone is what I call a give me, a taker, where they only want to network for their own growth. But actually networking to mutually empower, that has grown my community externally so much more than doing this alone. And I think that as content creators, we work alone a lot, and we forget that there's someone who knows 2 apartment buildings over who might also be a content creator doing the same thing and feeling equally alone. But with our, as they used to say in the cartoons, with our powers combined, we can totally expand and really inspire.
Where do you find those communities? Where do you start?
So that is a great question, and not to be wonderful promo here, but so my first group was from a Wanderful conference. That was a WITS conference rather. That was a very small accountability group, and we were all pretty much on the same level. And then another one, there was an international sort of creator development conference called Propel, and that one was sort of a press trip / conference, and and that was for a bit more advanced bloggers. So I built I was part of a mastermind group that we created from there, where we thought, wow, we're all kind of dealing with the same things. And the last one was joining press trips and all of these like fam trips and stuff. So I've really connected some of my best content creator friends I met on fam trips, where we became content creation buddies, taking pictures of each other and just having mutual goals. So those are the three that I would definitely say.
I think that's great. And it's so, there are so many ways to do it and to dive in, whether it's even like the early days when you just like tweet at someone and be like, hey, can we be friends? But now, right. I think even like, if you think about the value, the underlying value of some of these opportunities, like let's take a press trip, for example. I think a lot of times people are told when they're starting out, like you become a content creator and you're going to make money from day one. And so they feel like they need to only take these paid opportunities or only go for something where, they're going to be like, given a check at the end. But actually, maybe what you realize is that what you need right now is to just build your credibility, to build your network, and to learn from others. And so you sign up for something like an unpaid opportunity or a press trip, and the value that you're getting is actually the other people that are on this trip and just learning from them. And I think like having a really clear understanding of what you're trying to get out of each experience, and then just like making the most of that. But I think totally, like I think that's so great. And a lot of these press trips are like, can be really small, right? Could be like 4 or 5 creators. So then I think they're a lot more introvert friendly as well.
Absolutely. And there was a saying, I forget who told me this, but it's been said by so many people now, but they say when evaluating an opportunity, it can either be a brand builder or a bank builder. And I thought that was such a great way to think about things, because sometimes something isn't going to be, the biggest paid opportunity ever, but it will be pivotal to your growth and to your network and to your portfolio. So meet yourself where you are and do what's right for you.
I love that. And there's some good comments that have come through. We have one that's saying, it'd be great to do a learning session on how to network at conferences, and totally heard. In fact, at WITS, we actually used to do this. It was called, it had like the funniest name. It was called Networking Without Pants. Of course, you could wear pants and whatever type of thing you wanted to wear. And, but it was like networking just 101 and how to get used to it. So totally heard on that. Damaris had something in here. Oh, these are great words to hear. I've been in the business of supporting others with their projects and events for many years, and I'm now in the process of offering my own travel events as well. So really hearing what you're saying and taking it in, and quite a few more have come through. So I know people are really appreciating this advice. And if you had, a last piece of advice for somebody who's, I think a lot of people here are in different phases, but starting out, I mean, when you and I started, and we both started this at different times, it was a different world. I feel like somebody who started this last year, it's a different world now. I mean, like, do you have advice for somebody who's beginning their creator journey of like where you think they should be focusing their time and their energy these days?
I think my main advice would be, 1, do it afraid. And 2, I would say if you're trying to figure out what platform, test out a few of them. Like, it doesn't have to be a big thing. One thing that I did, because video wasn't my thing, I'm a blogging girly, like video, I'm not going on video. I didn't like the sound of my voice. I do a lot of like hand mannerisms. So what I would do is I did a little video in a certain way. Oh, I don't want to be on video, so I will just take video of other things and maybe do a voiceover. Try different ways. And then use that content, snippet for length, maybe a shorter version on Instagram, maybe a little bit longer on TikTok, or vice versa. Maybe a really long form video on YouTube, or just write out the transcript essentially of your video on a blog. Try different ways to share your message, right? And see what sticks. And, maybe nothing will stick for the first 3 months, but you'll be able to evaluate what is actually working for you over time, and also evaluate what you actually like doing. If it was absolutely grueling to do a video and you never want to do it again, then you don't have to do it again. Maybe writing is your thing and photography, and you can, focus on that instead. So just because other people are doing it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be for you, but start afraid, just go, just post it. No matter how perfect you try to make it, in 3 years, you're going to look back on it and think it's ugly anyway. So just do it.
I love it. I hope my internet just started being funky. So I hope I'm not like rudely interrupting you, but I think that's such good advice. And I think, oh, good. I'm like seeing you respond. I'm like, oh, good. I'm back. But it's so true. And I think know thyself, like you've got to do what feels right for you and, you know, what you love, because once you find it, you're going to be doing a ton of it. So, you know, find the things that you love to do and lean into those, and trust yourself, and don't be afraid to just try different things and see how they work. And I think those are all such good nuggets. Olivia, I appreciate so much you taking the time and the energy to meet with us, to share all of your stories. I know we dropped your socials in the chat, Instagram.com. Christine is your handle on Instagram. Anywhere else people should look for you, or do you want them to funnel to Instagram?
Yeah, you can do Instagram. If I am also on Twitter, X, whatever that situation is. So I also am there, and I also share a lot of behind the scenes and business nuggets when it comes to just running business as a content creator. But Instagram and ochristine.com, my blog, are my babies. So those are my primary homes.
Perfect. Well, thanks again for being here. Everyone else, stay tuned. You'll get an email in just a few minutes with all the resources we talked about and all the ways to follow up. Olivia, congratulations again on your award. And thanks again for taking time with us today.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Have a great one.